Welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. That's as serious as I get,
It's-
isn't it?
it's
That was
not-
pretty good.
It's
It
not
sounded good.
It's not exactly Darth Vader.
Oh. This is Joshua Solomon,
How you doing,
my
everybody?
accomplice.
This is not James Earl Jones.
No, it is not.
This is Gary Hopper, the Honorable Gary Hopper.
Oh gosh, I had a conversation with a guy, and I was a smart guy, but intelligence isn't necessarily mean informed. So I said to him one time, I said, I love what Earl Jones, what is his first name?
James Earl Jones.
I love James Earl Jones' voice because I have the Bible read by him on cassette, and I just love his voice. I envy cassette. I know it's some wicked old.
Jeez.
So I loved the Darth Vader thing and stuff like that. And my friend goes, James Earl Jones wasn't Darth Vader. I said, yeah, dude, he was. He says, no, he wasn't. Darth Vader's white. He says, okay.
Everybody's right in some sense.
In some sense.
All right,
in some
so
sense. But
David
not,
Prose is white, and he was inside the costume, but James
yes,
Earl Jones was the voice.
And he had a great voice for that character.
99.9% of Star Trek fans don't even know what David Prose looks like. So
Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Or
See,
Star Wars.
that's why. The
Oh,
Star
did I?
Trek fan don't
Did
know.
I say Star Trek?
Yeah, you did. That's a sin, you know.
Oh, I gotta go commit Harry Carey.
Something. You want a knife? I got an extra. Anyway.
I cannot believe I made that mistake.
Yeah, I
Oh,
can.
my Lord.
Yeah.
Please don't call in and chastise me for that.
Yeah,
please.
you can chastise him for something else. So anyway, tonight our guest is the Honorable Bill Fowler from Seadrook, New Hampshire. So, and you're running for Congress to unseat Sir Pappas, Sir Chris Pappas.
Oh, definitely. I think he's almost unseated himself. So
I can't believe a congressperson from New Hampshire voted for those articles of impeachment.
well, actually, Chris Pappas's voting record is 100% along Nancy Pelosi's. We might as well just have given her our vote and had her vote for us. So.
Couldn't we just have, like, with all the DNA technology we have, couldn't we just clone Nancy Pelosi and have her, just have somebody sit in that seat?
Well, simple enough. You could have just proxied the vote and saved the money
Right, yeah.
because he voted 100% along her voting schedule. So.
Well, now, we know that Shaheen and Hassan are going to do the same.
Well, we already prepared for that, but we were hoping that Chris Pappas would actually do something different, and we weren't let down. He definitely did exactly what everybody had predicted and followed the party line.
Right.
Yeah, because the articles of impeachment are basically a joke. I mean, for the people out there, to impeach a president, he has to have committed high crimes or misdemeanors. And back when the Constitution was written, misdemeanors meant very severe things. You know what I mean? Treason is like top of the list. Or something equivalent to treason. I mean, Clinton was barely on the threshold of high crimes and misdemeanors by virtue of the fact that he lied under oath. So he committed a felony, but that was still sketchy.
Right.
But this one, he didn't.
Which is why it was dismissed, right?
Right,
That's
yeah.
why the trial against Andrew Johnson, I think there were 13 articles of impeachment. It was in the
13.
teens. And the Senate debated the first two, and after each one, they voted no, unanimous.
Right.
And the second one, they voted no, unanimous. And then they said, you know what? This is just partisan crap, and they dismissed the remainder.
Right.
That's how it went, right? And that's really what's happened with each of the three impeachments so far, is that they've been political impeachments with no real substance behind it. Now, it was true that Clinton did commit a felony by lying under oath, and a lot of people they think that he was impeached for
An affair.
For an affair, and that's not what it was. It was for the legal aspect, where he was testifying in a criminal case or in a civil case, but he lied under oath, and he was disbarred in Arkansas.
Correct.
and he was stripped of his right to practice law in front of the Supreme Court forever, right? So there were actual crimes committed, and that's why Bill Clinton was impeached.
Right.
And we still said, even the Republicans said, you know what? It wasn't a party line vote. There were folks on both sides who said, you know what? This needs to just go away.
Right.
And
was
that's
towards
not
the
what's
end of
happening
his-
this time.
It was towards the end of his
Right.
his
Reign.
term anyway, so they kind of just said, let's just ride it out and just be done with it. And I think that's what both parties agreed to at the
Right,
end.
and that's exactly what's happened in the last two times the president was impeached, was that everybody said, you know what, enough of this madness. It's time to get past it, and we got a different situation going on here today.
No, we got a lot. Go ahead.
The Senate definitely stepped up and said, we're not going to dismiss this right away. Let's go ahead and go through the process so that way they can't come back on us and say it wasn't done the right way. It was rushed to judgment. So they're taking their time. They're doing it right. They're doing their due diligence. And I think once it's all said and done, he's going to be exonerated. And then it's all going to go away. And then hopefully they'll try something else so that we can actually show them for what they really are. And that's
Well,
a party.
I disagree. I don't think we have to. There's nothing more to show. We had 2 years of a fake Russian collusion investigation.
Correct.
2 years. At the beginning of that 2 years, we now know because of the IG report that the FBI themselves knew that they did not have enough evidence to even seek a FISA warrant. They already knew that Trump hadn't colluded with the Russians, and that's before, I think, right around the time he was sworn in. But what they did want is to continue the investigation to see if they could find something to hang him with.
Right.
That's
They're
what the
looking for
whole
everything.
purpose was.
Right.
And the Democrats went along with it. Nunes, Chairman Schiff knew way ahead of time that this was all BS, but he kept lying to the press, and Comey's lying to the press. Comey's now coming out and saying, oh, well, there was some mishandling, which is a lie. It was absolute abuse of power. So you had 2 years of the Democrats in cahoots with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, attacking Trump and trying to unseat an elected president of the United States. And they just got done with that, and they follow up with a quid pro quo, which if you look at anything the federal government does, there's a quid pro every single time. Every single deal they make with any foreign leader is a quid pro. You do this and we do this. You do this, we do this. That's all we do.
And it's set out in law that must take place.
Correct.
In the case of the Ukraine, a very specific law signed into law by Bill Clinton in 1998, specifying that any trade with Ukraine must include the United States understanding that there's no corruption in Ukraine.
Right.
In order to release funds, we have to be assured that the funds are going to the correct place and that there's no corruption. It's an anti-corruption trade agreement with the Ukraine, signed into law by the Clintons.
Well, the trade agreement also stipulates that if there's any criminal wrongdoing, the president can ask for assistance from them in that criminal investigation. It's right there in the treaty that he's within his powers to do that, which is what he basically asked them to do. He didn't say, we're not going to do anything for you, just do the right thing.
Right.
We expect you to do the right thing and handle it accordingly. So he was well within his rights per the trade agreement to ask for assistance in a criminal case. That's right in the stipulation. I read the entire treaty,
Exactly.
and it's a lengthy, boring document.
Exactly, but we're supposed to ignore that, especially when discussing it in the media, on CNN, on MSNBC.
Well, I'm not going to ignore any of it.
We don't discuss those things because we don't want the general population to understand why President Trump asked the questions that he asked.
Exactly, and he was forthcoming with all the recordings, all the transcripts. Initially, he held back, and then he says, you know what, here they are. And when they had nothing to go on at that point, they went to another charge to drum up.
Right.
It all goes away
It's-
quickly as he starts to answer the questions, and they keep trying to build a case
There's no
more and more
Russian
and more.
collusion. Okay, well, there's nothing in the phone call, but he's withholding witnesses who aren't abiding by and so we'll call that obstruction, right?
Exactly.
You know, and it just goes back to they expect you to think that simply by not participating in the process, that is obstruction, that you're hiding something, and that's not the case. If I was accused of murder, and I was asked to testify or asked to participate in finding evidence against myself for a crime that I didn't commit, I'm going to refuse.
Oh, exactly.
I can find evidence
And
for them.
oh yeah, okay. Well, we'll talk about that later, Gary. Out in the alley back here,
All right.
where it's dark. But the idea is there was
You're
no
not gonna
crime
kill
committed,
again, are you?
and they're very upset that he's not participating in their efforts to dig up something that doesn't exist.
Right. He's letting them hang themselves.
That's not obstruction.
From what I gathered, and I've
That's
been
his
watching
Fifth
it.
Amendment right not to self-incriminate.
Oh, exactly. And I've been watching it from the very get-go, just for my own peace of mind, so I'm informed. And he's followed suit all the way up until that point. And they've just told a lie, and now they have to tell more lies to cover that lie. Now they have to tell more lies to cover those lies, because once it comes to light that they've created a lot of this, it's going to show their abuse of power. And they don't want that to happen. So they're going to push this all the way to the end, because once that shows that, their seats are going to start shaking a little bit.
Yeah, it's maddening. Nancy's fond of saying that no one is above the law, but she's absolutely not fond of saying that the President of the United States does have his own Fifth Amendment rights
On
as
the
well.
bright side,
Right.
Most
on
certainly
the
does.
wait just a sec. On the bright side, this is the first time I've ever remember Pelosi citing the Constitution as often as she has. I didn't know I don't think she's ever actually read it.
She's also cited that she's a very Catholic woman, but, votes to give Planned Parenthood all their money.
Yeah. So anyway, Sir Bill.
Giving the keys to the fox guarding the hen house. That's basically what it is.
I know. Actually, I think really what's going on in D.C. right now is multifaceted. I think one is people like Pelosi and Romney and Biden have enriched their families through Ukraine and others, through other foreign dealings for so long, and they've gotten so wealthy doing it. They don't want to upset the apple cart, and B, they don't want people to find out.
Exactly.
It's also about they want that power structure to stay in place. So, once that election happened in 2016, they've done everything they can think of to try to unseat the President of the United States.
No,
It's a
exactly.
coup.
He's
It really
exposing
is.
a lot of it. There's a lot of things that
Well,
have happened that
that's
we wouldn't
exactly
know about
right.
if he wasn't pushing the issue as hard as he is.
He can't be bought and controlled by the parties, which is what a lot of presidents in the past have done. They kind of have to pick a side because that's the strength in numbers. He has nobody to answer to. So he's that loose cannon that we need to be sitting in that chair to make those decisions for us.
Well, that's exactly why the Constitution was written the way it was.
Exactly.
So that you cannot buy the presidency, and so that the average American can ascend to it without having to come up through some sort of a nobility class.
Exactly. And that's kind of where I'm standing at now, running for the District 1 congressional seat, is I'm just a regular guy. I'm not a career politician. I'm not, pro this or pro that. I stand on a conservative standpoint because I think it's a safe place to be. And I think a regular person needs to now work their way back into Congress, because that was the way it was originally designed to be. As your gentlemen, regular farm workers going in there doing the legislation, it's become a political career for these people. And I advocate for term limits. If we have a term limit with the presidency,
Next question.
okay, if we have term limits on the president, and the reason is because it prevents the president from gaining too much power, then why don't we have the same stipulations for Congress, the same stipulations for the Senate? You can do 2 terms, 10 years, as the president does, and then your time is up. People have said to me, well, then you're taking away the power of the people's vote. We're not. We're not. Because you should have another candidate to pick that torch up. If you don't,
Yeah, okay.
now you have a problem.
Okay, devil's advocate. Let's say the term limits were ridiculously short. I know, as a state legislator, it took a couple terms to even get an idea what really was
I
going,
agree,
how to get
yep.
things done. If you have basically, let's say 50% of the incoming class in the United States House are freshmen,
Right.
or the Senate are freshmen, that means the people with the real power in the legislature, in Congress, would be the bureaucrats that have been there for 50 years and 30 years and 40 years, because
Correct.
they know how to manipulate the new Congress people as they come in, and so somebody like Trump would not even be possible.
That's correct. In answer to that is those people who have been there for 4 decades. All right, 4 decades, you start losing touch with the people. You really do, unless you're living right
I'm
there in
talking
those
about the
communities.
bureaucrats, not the elected.
The bureaucrats, they're going to be there, and what we have to do as freshman legislators, when I was elected this term for the state House of Representatives, I was a freshman coming in, and I looked to those party members that had been there for a while, and I get that. Al Belisaro, people like that say, you know what, this is kind of what you want to do, these are the footsteps. Here in New Hampshire, we have the benefit, and the good benefit is that we have good legislators. They're regular guys. They're not professional, legislators. They're not professional politicians. So when you speak to them, they genuinely care. To start to weed out those long-term bureaucrats is you need to educate or the support of the people for those freshmen coming in and say, okay, we got this guy going in there. We've been doing the state legislation for so long. We have a working knowledge. Let's sit down with him and say, look, this is what you need to expect. And we need to take more hands-on approach, making sure that the people we're sending there, number one, aren't career politicians. They're not old-school bureaucrats. They're not rich money that's going to buy that seat and just push big money politics. But we as legislators should say, we got a congressman going in, freshman, new guy, let's sit him down and say, okay, this is what you need to expect. Because I rely on you guys in the legislature to say, okay, where's the guidance on this?
Right, but the difference is going to be, okay, I'll tell you what I was informed about, and I was from somebody I trust, so I'll presume it's correct until I hear otherwise. So, as a freshman, you're gonna, let's say you're elected, you're gonna go in there. There's going to be the speaker or the minority leader, depending on who wins the U.S. House. And they're going to go up to you and say, Bill, I really need you to co-sponsor this, 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 and this. And you look at those 3 bills, you go, I don't agree with any of those. I'm not co-sponsoring that. Well, Bill, the thing is this is how it works. If you co-sponsor this, FISA will donate $5,000 to the Republican re-election PAC.
Right.
And this one, General Motors will donate $5,000 to the PAC in your name. And this one, and if you don't have enough of those on your slate by the time the 2 years is up, we'll find somebody else in your district who can, help us make money, because it's all about making money.
I think some of that will work itself out, especially if if we can continue the idea of having someone like President Trump in the White House. He is out there, he's draining that swamp. Those bureaucrats are running scared.
But that's exactly
They're
right.
quitting, right? And if we impose, say, a 12-year term limits on both houses, right? That's 2 terms for senators, that's 6 terms for reps, right?
Right.
And you, as a congressman, you see a minimum of 2 presidents during that period of time, possibly 3 at single-term presidents, right? So you're going to span presidencies. So,
Right.
But at the same time, there's going to be turnover in Congress, and you're going to have folks, the new folks, the freshman folks, who are going to have the same type of an outlook as Trump. And eventually, those bureaucrats on both sides are going to be filtered out. There might be a period of chaos for a few terms.
Right.
But the idea would be that the bureaucrats are now going to have to answer to all of these people who are rotating in, and you're not going to have folks that have a longer term, even in the bureaucracy, than the 12 years or so. Because
Correct.
all of those people are going to want to say, you know what, I don't like that. You're out of here. I'm going to fire you and hire somebody else in your place.
Right.
And eventually that turnover will get to the point where it is what we're looking for is a constant turnover of those folks in that.
Well, I
in
think
those
like when
jobs.
I was elected to the House in New Hampshire, walking in the door, my first term, I told myself right off the bat, I'm not sponsoring a bill. I'll co-sponsor. I'll have whomever's presenting the bill explain to me why it's beneficial to the people in my community, what benefits it'll have to our state, and I'll co-sponsor those bills that I feel affect those people directly. I think I sponsored like 8 to 10 bills, or co-sponsored, which actually made some good changes, some minor changes that helped people along the way. So going into Congress, I think if you look at it from the perspective with the idea of my first term, I'm just going to kind of feel the water. I'm going to look at those bills. I'm going to call on old friends who are in the legislature, say, well, this is what's presented. What do you think, to get some feedback? And then as you spend more and more time in the Congress, you'll start to get more experienced and see a grander scheme on how everything falls in place. But I think as a freshman, even at the state level, you got to be very cautious what bill you just jump on without any question whatsoever. And I think that's the major problem we're having right now, is we have people that are getting in there and just going, oh yeah, party, 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 here you go, I'm safe. And
Right.
that's not the way politics should run.
I think
it
that
should
would
be.
come
agree
to an
with you.
end. I think that would come to an end with term limits. Even the
I think it
lobbyists
would, over a period
would
of
start to
time.
realize, oh, we can't move the parties or the Congress as a whole. We have to think about, okay, who's this person coming in and what's his ideology,
Right.
as opposed to expecting that people are going to come in and follow the party line and do what they're told.
Exactly.
And that's what we got to get away from, is being told what to do when we're elected to do something else.
Right. Well, see, in my unique position is I'm not a career politician. I'm not a party puppet. I got a 93 on my party voting record. I'm proud of that. That means that I have a little versatility. I can see the benefit in some things that other people can say, no, that's a Democratic bill, don't like it. You're blinding yourself. Okay, you need to have a little versatility to kind of walk a little bit in the middle, but keep those real strong conservative values. But walking in there with a 92, I mean, that shows that you can talk to me. I have a bill right now that I'm co-sponsoring with a Democrat. It's about drug recovery programs. It's a non-party issue.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So if we're so party-driven, we're like they have been in the recent past, you're going to lose a lot of that nit and gritty and bread and butter that's beneficial to the people. So I think term limits would bring in a new set of eyes every so many years, a new, fresh perspective. And from my unique perspective is, again, I'm not a career politician. I'm a regular guy that has worked a 9 to 5, survived on $30,000 a year, coming in there with the hunger to say, you know what, I see people starving every day. I see them without homes. I see them struggling to pay the rent and then pay for food that day. So when I walk in there, they say, well, you do this and we're just going to donate $10,000 to them. To me, I don't care. I care that the people at home have a home. They have money in their bank account, that their bills are paid. Why? Because I was that guy. I still am that guy.
What did you do? What were you? What's your career? What? Obviously, the $200 every 2 years is not enough to survive on. So
Doesn't pay your rent?
no, my wife hasn't figured out how to stretch that very well.
I originally, like everyone else, at 17 years old, had no clue what I was doing with my life. So I enlisted in the military at 17 and a half. Served for 8 years, got out of that and went into private and professional security, did bodyguard work, industrial security, investigative work, and I did that for over 25 years. As I hit 40-ish, 45-ish, my body started to take in a toll. I said, I can't keep doing these long days, very hazardous circumstances. So I found a different career in a rental business. U-Haul hired me as a general manager of one of their multi-million-dollar centers.
Yeah.
Kept that running for a while. And then we needed at home, we had 5 children, we needed a parent at home at all times because we had an infant, we had middle-aged children. So we had a parent staying home. And my fiance, who had been offered a very lucrative job with a trucking company, asked, well, can I take this job? Well, in order for me to do that, I would have to go semi-retirement.
Right.
So I said, you know what? I've spent 25, 30 years of my life doing the things that I love. Let's give you the opportunity. So I went semi-retirement, still worked part-time, doing security, doing stuff like that, and gave her the ability to now chase what she wanted to do. and start her career out. So now I'm in semi-retirement, and I sat home and I said, well, I see the problems that are going on.
So you're a kept man.
I'm a kept man. But I ran for the legislature as because I saw the problems that were going on with the children and family law, with family law predominantly. And people were calling me, asking me for answers and asking me for questions on how to do this and how to do that. And I said, you know what? I'm going to run for that office and see if we can't clarify some of this stuff to make a difference. So I ran and won my first term. And I've been on the Children and Family Law Committee all along, trying to balance
Tough
both
committee.
sides. It's a tough committee.
And
'cause
you're
there's a lot.
loud. You're wicked loud.
Well, I don't know. You guys are just
Oh,
as
no,
loud
no,
sometimes.
no. Okay, so in the House, we got the Judiciary Committee, and then the next to it is the Child and Family Law Committee. Well, they wrap up their work early, and we're still trying to have hearings, and they're all over there joking and yelling and screaming.
Is there a wall between you?
Not good enough.
Oh.
Not
Paper
good
wall.
enough. Yeah.
But we're
Well,
not
that's your
a,
next bill, funding for
We're not a,
soundproofing.
Yeah,
the cat-
soundproofing.
we're a very nonpartisan committee. We do what we do for the benefit of families, the children, to unify those families, to keep that balance, and so there's no party conflict. So there's no argument, there's no big discussion. We all agree that this is what we need to do to fix the system. We get in and out, we pass some decent legislation. We got some coming this session to help re-clarify what we did last session. So it's a really good committee. It's no arguments, there's no party lines that we cross. And everybody does their job, everybody goes home satisfied. And like you said, we get out at really half the time that most of the other committees are still in there debating. So
No,
it's
we're
a
actually
great
just
committee.
having hearings. We're still having hearings. We had
So
the,
since you get out at half the time, you give back some of that $200 each year, since you're not working a full
Well, no, I
day?
stay there. Because I co-sponsor other bills in
money
other
back.
committees. So, like I had a bill that went through this afternoon, I have a bill tomorrow that's going through, that's in a different committee. And we co-sponsor so many others. So, for 11 cents an hour, which is about what I averaged, about 1,100 hours
You're
per
worth it,
session.
though, don't you think?
About 11 cents an hour. I think we've earned that.
Yeah.
I think we've earned our 11 cents an hour. And I think that hometown legislator is what I'm trying to bring to Congress, is that guy that understands that going without a meal for a day is how you pay your rent. So when I go there and vote on a bill, I understand how it directly affects the people.
See, I haven't had that problem.
No, you haven't. That's
No.
why I'm running for Congress. And
Nice.
And the thing I noticed in regards to stepping back just a little bit on this impeachment's cost the tax-paying people about $40 million. There's 1,450 homeless people in this state right now that's registered, not to say the people that aren't registered. That would pay for every homeless person to have a place to sleep and a meal in their stomach for the next 6 years of their lives. And it just went for this farce.
It's a powerful message. It
That is
could
a-
also be used to clean up the streets of San Francisco.
It could be used for so many different things.
You
It
know,
could,
Pelosi's
it could
home
house
district.
our veterans. We have 173 homeless veterans in this state.
How many?
173 homeless veterans in this state.
That's sick.
That is insanely sick. And that's part of one of the things that I'm fighting for. I donate my time week to week to take veterans who can't get to the post office, can't get to Market Basket, can't get to Walmart. I give them rides of my own free accord whenever they have the time to do it. I go to the homes, I pick them up, I run their errands, and I drop them back off again. And that's something I do to give back to my brother and sister veteran, because there's no services out there for them to do that. And it annoys me knowing that these people have sacrificed their entire lives for the freedom that we all benefit from, and then they're forgotten. They're tossed to the side. When we have a $40 million farce that's going on right now that could house them all, could pay for them all for a period of time.
Right.
So it's embarrassing to say that. Why isn't somebody doing something? Well, that's why I ran. I ran out of excuses to not run. And that's what everybody asked me, why are you running? I ran out of excuses.
Red flag laws.
Get rid of them all.
Explain to the voters what they are and why they're horrible.
Red flag laws are anything that will circumvent the Second Amendment or take away your right to peaceably and with responsibility carry a firearm.
Right.
And I had an interview this afternoon, and somebody says, well, all the mass shootings, what's your opinion on the Second Amendment? I said, do nothing with it. Leave it alone. Because the only defense we have against a criminal with guns are having law-abiding citizens with guns. And we had a recent shooting recently
2 days
that
ago,
proved that fact.
saved the life of a police officer.
It did. So,
Well,
if
tell them
you-
what the story is, so you
Right. I don't remember which state it was in, but
probably Texas.
a state trooper had pulled over a woman on a highway for a traffic ticket, and while the state trooper was conducting his business, some other bystander came out with a gun and shot the state trooper, I believe, in the chest. And they started to struggle. The state trooper started to struggle. The state trooper started screaming for help. And another driver on the highway saw this, got out of his vehicle, yelled at the person to stop. Again, while the state trooper was shot and struggling with this person. When it didn't stop, that particular driver went back into his vehicle, got his legally concealed carry weapon. He wasn't wearing it.
Right.
Came out and shot that perpetrator dead. Then called for help using the police officer's radio. And they said that if he hadn't have done that at the exact moment that he did it, that the police officer would be dead.
Right.
He was taken away in an ambulance and saved, and the perpetrator's dead. And that is a good guy with a gun, not a law enforcement, anyone anywhere near trained to be law enforcement, but trained and licensed to carry, and took a bad situation and made it less bad.
And the same with the church shooting that we had just recently, same thing.
Yep.
Bad guy comes in with a gun. A bunch of good guys with guns stopped him from hurting anybody.
Well, I think didn't he kill like one
There
person, right?
was one person killed.
I know somebody had to get in. I
Yeah.
didn't. I
Yeah.
didn't know they had passed.
But I mean, it stopped the situation. He came in with a rifle and a handgun, and he was not done doing what he was doing.
No, he was just just getting going, and they took him out.
And if
You
you
can't
watch,
legislate evil. You've
Right.
tried. It just doesn't happen. There's
Right.
no way you
When
can
you-
stop an evil thought from an evil person. You just can't do it.
when you pass gun control laws, you're basically enabling the criminals.
You're
right?
creating
There's-
victims.
There's
I,
no,
I will tell you the and I think is I think most legislation has two different levels.
Mhm.
I think the bulk of the people who support red flag laws believe that they could prevent somebody who was unstable from having a gun and it might save a life. I believe that most of them believe that.
Right.
Okay? But like most legislation, it's multi-layered, and there's usually ulterior motives going on. And I believe one of the prime ulterior motives is to shut Second Amendment people up.
Right.
How's that work? Why would that work? Because if they know I get a Trump bumper sticker on and I got my Trump sign, campaign sign out or whatever, and I'm a Second Amendment guy, they know all they have to do is call the police and say, look, Gary's pretty unstable. Then they look at my Facebook post and say, yeah, he's definitely unstable. And next thing you know, they're going and taking all my guns away.
Right.
Well, most people, a lot of people, instead of dealing with that, if the red flag bills go through, they'll just keep quiet. They won't voice their opinion because they know there is some, because a lot of these anti-Second Amendment people are nuts.
Oh, yeah.
So they know there's enough of them out there that would turn them in. So now they have to try to hire lawyers to get their Second Amendment rights back, and pay a rental fee to the police station for holding on to their firearms for a month or two.
a month or two. I don't believe you'll ever get them
Well,
back.
I'm trying to.
But what I'm getting at is, I believe a lot of the motivation for the red flag laws is to keep Second Amendment people quiet. Stay out of the way. Don't give us your opinion. Shut up and leave us alone so that we can run the country our way. And I think that is one of the secondary or ulterior motives to the red flag
and
laws.
if you open your mouth, you're going to get swatted.
In
Yep.
my opinion, the Constitution is the bedrock document that has created this country into being the freedom capital of the entire world. And the most powerful statement in that entire document is shall not be infringed. And that is with any amendment, any term, any word that's in that term, the most powerful one is shall not be infringed. Why? Because it defends all the other amendments. It defends your First Amendment. It defends everything. So as long as they can't infringe upon that right for me to defend my freedom, your freedom, and the freedom of this country, then it'll be a free country. They're trying to now step around that term, shall not be infringed.
Right.
When you do that, you have just created a crack in that bedrock for all kinds of bad things to happen.
Yep.
And as far as I'm concerned, the best thing we can do with the Second Amendment is do nothing to it. Leave it alone. Leave it for what's there and what its intended purpose was for, and stop trying to regulate people's right to defend themselves.
Oh, I totally agree.
And on my watch, if I get elected into Congress, which I hope, nobody will ever change that fact, because I will drive that we shall not be infringed, and I'll wear it as a T-shirt every day if I have to.
They'd probably get a tie, but more formal.
I can get it.
Well, you can-
Yeah.
I
Shall
can get it
not
printed,
be.
shall not be infringed.
Right, right.
But the Second Amendment is the most important amendment which keeps this country free.
Yeah, as soon as all the power is in the hands of the government, we become its servants instead of the government being our servants.
Exactly. Well, the argument speaks for itself when the safest states in our entire country are the ones with open carry laws.
Yep. The other thing too is for people who don't grasp the intent of the Second Amendment, New Hampshire, I don't know if it's quite unique, but I know it has this wonderful, the 10th Amendment to the New Hampshire Constitution. And it lays out why we have the Second Amendment. The 10th Amendment to the New Hampshire Constitution is not the right to revolt. It's not only the right to revolt, it is also the obligation to revolt.
I carry this in my pocket at all times.
Read that. Read number 10 to him. You got better eyes than me, so you can
If I can find number 10 quickly.
So, it basically says that people, the citizens of New Hampshire, absolutely, positively, if government gets way too big for its boots, not only should revolt against the government,
But it's their obligation.
their obligation to do so. The words are much more flowery than I just said, but it's still the case. And so if they believed at the founding of this, the Constitution, which is State Constitution 1784, that you had an obligation to rebel against the government if it got out of hand, it only follows that there's a means by which to do so. And so if the government was the only ones, the militia was, or the National Guard was the only one that was supposed to have guns, then
Would you
that
like to read
doesn't
the top
hold.
page? Right there, Article 10. And I carry that with me at all times just for that reference. If we ever get to the point where somebody has a question, I carry it with me 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
So, the New Hampshire Constitution, Article 10, Right of Revolution. Government being instituted for the common benefit, protection, and security of the whole community, and not for the private interest or emolument of any one man, family, or class of men. Therefore, whenever the ends of government are perverted and the public liberty manifestly endangered, and all other means of redress are ineffectual, the people may, and of right ought, to reform the old or establish a new government. The doctrine of non-resistance against arbitrary power and oppression is absurd, slavish, and destructive of the good and happiness of mankind. That article is essentially telling us that if you are going to sit by and allow government to take control of you or to abuse its power over you, by not doing anything, you are being lazy, you are being slavish, and you are irresponsible to your fellow man.
Correct. It's a very powerful message.
Is that awesome? That is such an
And that's
awesome.
our state.
That's a state.
So
And
not
that
only
was
do we have-
enacted before the federal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We've had these rules in place for a long time,
We've
longer than the
actually been
federal
here
government.
longer. Yeah.
Yeah, we have the first constitution in the country.
That's correct.
And that Article 10 is in addition to Article 2, which is our own.
Yeah, but that was
version
that
of
was
Second
in the
Amendment.
'80s.
Right.
Yeah.
That was brought
Yeah.
back in the 80s.
That
So-
was Crow Dickinson was the one who I
So-
served with Crow for a couple of terms. He's retired now.
So we've tried to keep, and New Hampshire's unique to where we're one of the only states that we abide by our own rules. And our economy is really good. Our job market is excellent. We treat everybody with respect. We don't have mass shootings. We don't have gun problems. We don't have a huge amount of deaths with regards to guns. It's a pretty good state.
It's a very good
So
state.
when you walk out of here with that same level-headed objectivity and bringing it to Congress, my goal and my hope is that New Hampshire can now start to, infect Congress with that same simple, straight, cut and dry mentality. And if we can bring that to Congress and have it not be party blown away or misconstrued, and we keep that simplicity to it, I think Congress will start to say, well, why is New Hampshire so good at what they do? Let's look at that a little closer. Let's understand, and if we can have the entire country start seeing how easy it really is to balance everything, then I think that we're doing our jobs.
Yeah, I think I think that's part of the problem is when you and I go to Concord, we're not doing it to get rich.
That's correct.
You can't. If you are, you're a lot
Right.
smarter
You
than
just
me.
made the big mistake.
You're just wicked.
Well, somebody
screwed.
had brought up my point. I had brought to the point this afternoon. They said, "Well, you're just in politics for the money." I said, "The money." I said, "I make 11 cents an hour." I said, "I work 1,100 hours, and I don't do it for the money." Well, that's why you're running for Congress. I said, "I'm not running for the money. I want to be able to come home, look at you square in the face, and say, how's your economy doing? How's your living doing? Why? These are all my friends and family. My family's been in New Hampshire for over 250 years. Before it was even established, my family was here. My great-grandmother's an American Indian, or an indigenous person.
That was out near the seacoast, so it might be near you. One of the coolest things in New Hampshire history, I think, was, I forget who it was. I don't have the names because I don't remember things like that very well. But there was somebody who had aggravated the king. So the king took possession of his property and then put it up for auction,
I think I hear something about
right?
Yeah.
They put, this is in mid 1700s, I think. So the governor put this, who the governor at the time would have been an appointment from the king,
Correct.
put this rebellious SOB's property up for auction. Nobody would bid on it. The people of New Hampshire were so cool that instead of getting this beautiful, I don't know if it's a mansion, I don't remember what it was, but let's just presume for entertainment's sake, this beautiful mansion for pennies on the dollar. Instead of doing that, they said, no, we're not doing that. We're not bidding on.
They stuck together.
They
and
stuck
that's-
together and stuck it to the man, and that's what New Hampshire's all about, is sticking it to the man.
Well, that's it. New Hampshire is more a family state. Like, we're all family. We're all Granite Staters. We're all...
Like the Addams family, you mean?
That's kind of what it is.
Right, yeah.
You look like Lurch. But we
Wow.
defend each other.
That was hurtful. I like that.
You're not quite
When
as tall.
we go
Yeah,
over
not
to
as
Mass,
tall.
all right, you could be a Democrat or Republican. You go to Massachusetts, all of a sudden, we're New Hampshire. We're Granite Staters. We are from New Hampshire. It doesn't matter our political party. And that's how New Hampshire sticks together. It's okay for brothers to argue, but you argue with my brother, not me and you have a problem.
Yeah,
And that's the way New Hampshire is. We're a very family type of state, and that's what I like about New Hampshire. It's just, I know my neighbors. I know I work with some of the greatest legislators in the entire country.
thank you.
Well, somebody had asked me this afternoon, well, do you think that we should shrink the number of legislators in the state of New Hampshire?
No, bad move.
And I said, absolutely not. Absolutely not. We have the same number of legislators that we originally started with, and we have the biggest diversity that you can have, and we always come up with a solution. Fewer means easier to manipulate. More means you really have to get
Right.
2/3 of a person, of the people, to believe in you in order to really make that law.
I think I'll tell you here. If the next time somebody suggests that to you, all you have to do is look at Marcy's law last term.
Right.
Marcy's law last term was one of the worst constitutional abominations I have seen since 2000 when I was first elected. Okay, right. It was an abomination, and it was one of the few bills that I saw coming through the pipe that scared me because it was so horrible. Right. But you had some dirtbag from California with more money than brains dishing it out, and the next thing you know, it went through the state senate like poop through a goose.
Right.
I think it was.
And it's only what, 21?
It was 20-3 against, 24 and 3 against. One person didn't vote.
And you only have to convince that small number of people in the Senate, and
right.
That's a problem. And right. And if you had such a small number in the legislature,
it'd be the same thing. So what had happened when it came to judiciary and criminal justice, and gosh, I was so proud. I was so proud to be on judiciary during those hearings because, oh gosh, it was a beautiful thing to see. We just tore that thing up. We had the Attorney General of the state. Well, that was Claire Rollard did that. Representative Rollard just absolutely nailed him. It was one of those Perry Mason moments. And Representative Birch, as a Democrat, diehard Democrat, he just laid it. He just asked a question of the governor that just same the reaction. He didn't know how to answer it. It was, by the time it got to the House floor, keep in mind, so it goes through, slides right through the state Senate. It only got, and I don't remember exactly the numbers, but basically it only got like 50 votes in the House and 320 against.
Wow.
We absolutely slayed it. And he invested, that guy from California invested a boatload of money trying to get this through. But it's because of the independence of the House.
Exactly.
And it's hard to buy 400 people.
Well, that's exactly right.
Except me. I mean, I'll sell my vote for a cup of coffee, so I'm not really the best example.
He likes
such a liar.
Starbucks.
I hate Starbucks. Never say that.
But that's in essence, that's what I told them. I said, leave it alone. It works, has worked for hundreds of years. Leave it alone. You know, we're not asking for millions of dollars. We do it for a cup of coffee, you know, right. Because we care. So that's what I want to try to bring to Congress is to get rid of big money, get rid of power, get rid of the bought seat, which is how it happens.
The best thing, the way to make your argument, I think, is this is the real deal. The fact that the citizens of New Hampshire and every other citizen in the country are so worried about what's going on in D.C.
Mm-hmm.
is proof that they have too much power.
This is true.
Who you vote for Congress should make little, if any, effect on your life, but it does, and it shouldn't.
It shouldn't.
They
Exactly.
should not have that kind of power to affect your life. They shouldn't be getting that kind of money, and there shouldn't be so much money in D.C. that they can pervert our lives back in New Hampshire.
Right.
Leave us, go there, do your thing, run the military and do infrastructure, and leave us alone.
Well, my platform is people before politics. That's the way it used to be. It's not that way anymore. It's all about the politics. It's all about the money. It's all about who can buy that seat out from underneath anybody else. I'm self-funded, and I will not take a dime from any big corporation, and everybody says that's my first big mistake, which isn't my mistake. Because I want people to believe in somebody again, to have hope again, to have a reason to say, you know what, I now believe somebody's going there to represent me. I'm going to help fund that.
That is actually cool, because the other thing they can do, and I think this is more powerful than money, is start encouraging people to make their own signs for their lawn for you.
Exactly.
In other words, when I went in 2009, I went down to the Tea Party rally that the press said was all against Obama, but what it was a protest against the expansion of the federal government. That's what the actual protest was.
Right.
The media played it different. But the one thing that I noticed at that rally in 2009, there's 500,000 people there, and the quantity of signs that were handmade showed me that there wasn't huge money behind it. It was individuals who cared. So if you're running a campaign in the first district, start getting people to just look. You don't necessarily have to give me money. Just get a piece of corrugated plastic and say
Right on
Bill
it.
Fowler for Congress.
Exactly.
And do it yourself, because then I don't have to buy a sign from some company.
Exactly.
And B, it looks like it's somebody that cares enough to put a sign out for you, not somebody who's driven along the road and put up signs.
Right. Well, you said it right. I'm not trying to change it. What I'm trying to do is to protest.
Yeah.
Big money, big corporations, the upper middle class, filthy rich that get into the seat for the position, their resume, their professional careers. I represent a protest to all of that. I'm trying to get in there to bring common sense back to the Congress, and I need people's support. I don't need your money. The money would be nice to help pay
Yeah.
for
Advertisements.
media and stuff like that. That's necessary. But what I need is people's support. Like you said, write a sign and stick it out. Tell your friends. Get on Facebook. Any question, I answer every question that gets sent to me.
Bill, we got to wrap it up.
All right.
And
my
if
friend.
you make a sign for Bill Fowler and you need to learn how to protect it, look for my mousetrap sign protection. Well, what do we get next week? I don't know who we got next week.
know who we
I
have
don't
next
even know what we got next. Bill, thank you very much.
Thank you, my friend.
Josh,
All right.
you're all right for
Nice to have you, Bill.
for an
Be here,
Irish one.
guys.
So anyway, we'll see you guys next week.